Folks, we got a red dot. Welcome back to Akron's hottest and fastest growing show, 3 to go. And I'm your host, St. Forrester, coming to you live once again from Basement HQ Studios, which will be changing hopefully in the very near future as we start to get out more and about in the community. But right now I'm here once again with Amourgis and Associates. I'm here with Francis this morning. Hi, Francis. How you doing?
Good morning, Hank.
All right. Well, thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it. And this is a topic that's been brought up a lot in the recent history and over the years in general. And it's just how to deal with an accident. But before we get into that, I just want to say thank you to Amourgis. You guys surprised me with a gift.
Sure, yes.
From Christmas. It's the Zach Ward Scott Farkas signed leg lamp. Okay.
Well, yes, one of a kind, probably a numbered series there, you know. It's a family heirloom. It will be a family heirloom someday. You'll be able to pass that down.
My kids know the movie. Believe me, my kids know the movie, and so yeah, it's become a part of our set now. So wherever
that'll be one thing they're looking for when you pass. That's the only thing. They'll say, "Who's getting the lamp?"
That's awesome. All right, so what the word accident means just that, right? It's not like, hey, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna play dodgems on the roads today and I'm gonna bump into some cars on purpose. When we have an accident, it's an accident, and I think it's important to start with that concept, and that is that it happens unwillingly, and then it's something that happens without us wanting it to. Okay. So from that standpoint, we're typically not necessarily prepared for that.
No, nobody goes out and prepares, and so much of it happens because we're distracted, and there's so many things that will distract us now. I mean, we all carry one of these, and it goes off, and and you have that dopamine fix when you see who's liking my picture of the kittens, and next thing you know, you've rear-ended somebody, and you certainly didn't intend to do it, but this is what world we live in right now. Before you and I were on, you were talking about an accident. I've been in accidents. It's just one of the things that happens in our lives. Nobody intends to do it. It just happens.
Well, and as we go through this conversation, I think it's important that one thing I didn't differentiate with some of the questions is the difference between the hittor or the hittee in regards to, and I didn't even think about that in advance as far as the different approach that needs to potentially take place based on if you caused the accident or if you were inadvertently a part of it.
That's a great question, because every state is a little bit different. We have 50 states, not 51, not 50, no, 48, 50 states, and they all have, including territories, because I have a friend that actually works in the Virgin Islands. They all have different automobile laws. Now, Ohio is what's called a fault-based state, and Michigan is a no-fault state. Pennsylvania is a no-fault state. So literally you could go 3 hours, 2 hours in any direction. It's a different set of laws. And you don't know what law necessarily applies, because here's the rub. If you take your Ohio policy and go over to Pennsylvania and you're in an accident, does no-fault insurance apply, or does fault-based insurance apply? It doesn't. It depends on how the accident goes. But here in Ohio, in the 330, we are a fault-based state. So there are two basic types of insurance. There's what's called liability insurance. That's the insurance that covers you if you should cause the accident. We've seen the ads, stay legal for less. That's the ads, okay? Liability insurance, you have to have $25,000 minimum coverage in Ohio. Then there's what we call underinsured motorists insurance, coverage, or what is commonly called full coverage, okay? That's the coverage that applies to you if you should be involved in an accident and the person that caused the accident, the hittor, as you said, doesn't have coverage, or the hittor has insufficient coverage. They have $25,000 worth of coverage. You've got $100,000 worth of damage. So that's where you would look to your own insurance company for coverage if the other party's insurance company would be too quote, insufficient. So in Ohio, make sure that you have liability and underinsured or uninsured motorist coverage, what we call full coverage.
Okay. And that was one of my first questions, is what type of insurance to carry. And from that standpoint, then what do you guys recommend that we have in a vehicle in advance of an accident? Like pre-accident, like it's not something we're thinking about, but obviously we should have our insurance. We should have our insurance card, right?
Right, right.
Um,
Yep, you should. And I prepared. Yes, you should
okay.
have your insurance card. Yes,
So what?
and so you need your insurance card. And this is funny. I'm old enough that you should have a camera in your car to take pictures of the damage. Well, we all have a camera right here. We all have a built-in camera. We could take a video, so you take a picture of the damage to your car and their car, because shockingly, sometimes damage that's unrelated to the accident gets claimed in the accident. And if you're responsible for that, you don't want to be that person. So you need your insurance card, your phone. That's what you should have in your car, which everybody has. In fact, you need to carry your insurance card, because if you don't, you could be cited for driving without insurance if you don't produce proof of it if you're in an accident. If you're responsible for it or not responsible for it, it is the law that you should have proof of insurance.
Okay. Okay. So then let's talk about the accident now. Let's move on to that. And there's obviously there's different levels of accident, right? There's we just had a little bump. There's both cars are incapacitated, or there's even worse where a human is incapacitated, right?
Right.
So from that standpoint, okay, I guess the first thing is, what do you do the moment, so vehicle stops, comes to rest? What's the first thing that you do?
Well, I mean, you evaluate to make sure that you and your occupants are physically intact, and conscious, because here's a situation. Maybe in the past we'd have to get out and make sure. There are so many safety I don't want to say precautions, but safety things built into our cars now. The first things, our cars are designed now more than ever, not to preserve the car, but to preserve the people in the car. So make sure that you and your occupants are okay. Okay. And, let's put it this way. There's going to be plenty of opportunity to figure out who's responsible for the accident after the fact. Your life is more important.
Okay.
Then secondarily, call 911, or call whoever I think most places have 911. I'm old enough that some places didn't have 911 yet, but call 911 and get the police out there, because here's the situation. You put two people in a room, they're going to have two different versions of what happened. Okay, the police are trained, they're educated, they're experienced in evaluating how the accident happens and assessing who's responsible for it, at least by their investigation. Now, what comes out on the police report isn't, gospel. I've seen police reports that were incorrect, but you have a record of the event, because number one, people's memories get clouded. Number two, if you're responsible, you might not include all the relevant details after the fact when you talk to the insurance company, et cetera, et cetera. So you want to call the relevant legal law enforcement agency and get them out there to take a report of it.
All right. So to that end then, and again, a lot of this depends on the situation as far as the safety of the car, the safety around the vehicle.
Correct.
Do you recommend getting out of the car or staying in the car until the police arrive?
It depends on where you're at. If you're in a parking lot and it's safe, get out of the vehicle, and take a look around. If you're on the side of the highway, and if you get out of the side of the vehicle, you're going to cause, and that's been one of the first significant cases I was involved in years ago. Was someone that's car became disabled on the highway, and they just left the car on the highway, and it caused a major pileup with fatalities. So get your vehicle to a place where it's safe for you, safe for others. Okay, that's the most important thing. Is there's been an accident, don't need to cause two accidents, and that's not uncommon. Is that I see accidents, and then when there's incapacitated vehicle, and then there's a second accident, and that happens more than you would know. I see a lot of accidents, so probably I see it more than the average person, but that is something that happens.
Believe it or not, it happens a lot on the reports that I do for you guys on the daily commute.
Yes.
As far as there's a rubbernecker delay, and then there's another accident because they're looking at the accident, right?
Absolutely, you're exactly right, because you got to see what's holding you up, man. You got to see that, and you got then there's a secondary accident that's caused. So yes, you're exactly right. Those accident reports, sometimes those do trigger some PTSD. Of my days going up and down Route 8 as a student. I'm like, who designed this? Who designed this road? I'd love to know. I want to meet these people.
It hasn't changed, and every day I'm reporting on it, and people are calling it the Bermuda Triangle now. So it's like, I mean,
I have kids that are just learning to drive. They're within the first couple of years of and they've been asking me questions. They're getting to the point where they've driven enough now where they're like, wait a second, the roads in Akron are pretty jacked up. I've been other places, and I just thought this was normal, but this can't be normal, can it? Because they're asking me, why is it that suicide squeeze where you get on or you're trying to get off, and it's almost the dance, between the cars getting on and off. So,
oh man, and I don't want.
Well, I mean, it does help my business.
Yeah,
So, I guess I shouldn't be biting the hand that feeds me.
I don't want to bash on Route 8, but yeah, it's got a wrap right now. It's got a wrap. All right, so yeah, getting out of vehicle based on safety concerns, right? So then the next thing is, okay, do you engage, besides saying, hey, are you okay? Do you engage with the other people from the vehicle that's been in an accident?
Here's my philosophy as an attorney, and maybe this goes back as a young attorney. I was a criminal defense attorney, as a public defender down in Canton, and my philosophy has always been, the less you can say, the better. Now, I mean, you don't want, if it's the two of you and that person is needing your help as a human being, as a good Samaritan, by all means, give it to them. But it's been my philosophy that after the fact, if there's some type of a litigation or something like that, it's rarely helpful that the two parties, one says I'm at fault and the other one says I didn't say I'm at fault, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there's always, my philosophy is, if you're responsible for the accident, don't talk. If you're not responsible for the accident, it's not really going to do you any sort of service to interrogate the other party and get them to admit they were responsible for the accident.
Right. Okay.
Although now today with a camera, maybe you could get it on film and use it, but I haven't seen that yet. But it's not gonna help the case if you go over and start yelling at the other person, because as we talked about at the beginning of the conversation, it's an accident.
Yep.
They're not setting out to ruin your day.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about treatment. All right. So I know a story from my dad. My dad was in an accident. It's probably the early '80s. He was driving a Ford Pinto, and he got in an accident, and he refused treatment at the time. He was like, I'm fine. It was the tough guy mentality, right? So I'm fine. Just leave me. And then he ended up experiencing some body issues, a month or two later. So from that standpoint, when an accident occurs, you may or may not be in shock or may not know what your body's doing. Do you always recommend that you seek some sort of treatment right then?
Well, here's and every person, I get to ask that question almost universally by my clients. And here's what I always tell everybody is, you're the best person that's in charge of your body. Okay. When I was at 20 years old, I could, fall off a garage, get up and run around the house. I was like a rubber band. If I did that at 50, I would lay there until somebody found me. Okay. So everybody responds differently to whatever forces. Like I was talking about my kids. If my kids and I are involved in an accident, there's a good chance I'm going to be more injured just because I'm older and creakier than they are. Okay. But my philosophy is this, and we'll talk about insurance companies in a minute, but my philosophy is this, is that you need to preserve the record. So if you've got injuries, and this happens, this is why insurance companies want to talk to you as soon as possible, because exactly this. You played sports. We've all gone to the family cookout, and we hadn't done anything physical in 2 years, but then we go hog wild, have a couple of drinks, and we're playing volleyball, and we're going all out, and like 2 days later, we can't get out of bed. Okay. That's what happens in auto accidents, is you don't feel it the day of, you don't feel it the day after, you feel it 2 days after, 24 to 48 hours afterwards. Also, none of us are unpainted canvases. None of us are walking around without any previous injuries. And a lot of times, auto accidents can aggravate or exacerbate pre-existing injuries, and in some cases were asymptomatic. You didn't have any pain. Next thing you know, boom, you're in this accident and you've got lower back pain and you haven't had it in 5 years. So my advice is, yes, get checked out. Now that we're coming out of the days of COVID, where people would say, "I'm going to the emergency room." I should say, "Don't go to the emergency room," But now we're there. Now emergency rooms might not be the end all be all of getting treatment, because they're set up to be emergency rooms. If you're in an emergency, a 2x4, through your head or something like that. So you're not going to get what we say, clinical care at an emergency room. You're going to get more like, "Are you stable?" And then they're going to send you home. So you may want to follow up with a chiropractor, a physical therapist, something like that, more if you have soft tissue injuries, something along those lines. Because, and I've been told this by an orthopedic surgeon, sometimes, we talk what we call whiplash. And Hank, you probably remember that episode of the Brady Bunch, remember? Where he comes into the eye with the neck brace.
Yes.
And you're like, whiplash, that's made up. Number one, think about it like this. And this was the best way that it's ever been explained to me. Think about, like, you're sitting in a chair and then somebody comes at 35 miles an hour and hits you from behind. Your head is going to snap back. Your body's going to go forwards, depending on the force. And those types of tearing of the ligaments, stuff like that, that can really persist for years unless you get the appropriate therapy. So the long answer to your question is yes, get the appropriate treatment for your injuries. Don't try to be a tough guy, because guess what? The insurance company doesn't pay you for being a tough guy. Right. There's no compensation for being a tough guy.
Okay. Next is like, so police show up, they assess the situation, everybody's okay, the tow truck starts showing up and all that stuff. Now at that point, they're in statement mode, so the police are going to gather their information. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
How do you? What are some tactics that you recommend as far as the proper way to give your statement, and then also how do you leave the scene? Do you leave with a friend? Do you let the police take you? Do you how's that?
Well, the police will make some of that decision for you. Okay, how you leave the scene.
Okay.
If you're up to no good, the police will provide a ride to you, to a place of their downtown. Okay, and I've seen people leave the accident, with a police escort. Generally, what happens is that you're involved in, just say, your stereotypical rear-end accident. What's going to happen is, if the car is drivable and safe, and you're the person that got hit, if the car's drivable and safe, they're going to ask you they're going to make a determination if it's safe enough to leave, and they'll tell you to, give the insurance information, tell you when the report is going to be available, and send you home. Okay. The other party, if they're responsible, generally speaking, I'll talk in the traditional and then the COVID days, police officers aren't having people in their car necessarily, so they might give you a citation. If you ran into the back of somebody, they'll give you a citation. So they'll hold you after they let the other person go. So what happens after that? You got to call your insurance. Okay, so this is where the statements come in, because think about it like this. It's not necessarily the statement to your insurance company if you're responsible, but you can sure as heck bet the other party's insurance company is going to call you and start asking you, Hank, okay, Mrs. Johnson hit you from behind at 2 o'clock. It's 5 o'clock on the same day. Tell me what happened. Okay, number one, the insurance company is bargaining on you being a little jangled, being a little shook up, being a little maybe even concussed, and unfamiliar. The insurance company, so let's say, insurance company X represents Mrs. Johnson who hit you from behind. They're going to want to get your statement to basically lock you into a story. It's no different than you watch those Criminal Minds or CSI or any of those. They want to lock you into a story. They want to figure out, if the other party did something, what the other party said, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, what your injuries are. And like you were just talking about your father, I didn't feel it at the time. So they said, well, geez, on Friday, March 12th, you said you were fine. Now, March 15th, you say you're in pain. What gives? Are you a liar, Hank? Does your mother know you're a liar?
Right.
That side of stuff. And you got to remember, you're dealing with an insurance adjuster. Now, this insurance adjuster works for an insurance company. Okay. The insurance company is a for-profit business. It's in business to make money. Turn on the NFL. Sad. I count the amount of insurance commercials during an NFL game, and every commercial break has, if the stadium, where do we, Progressive Field. Where do we watch? State Farm Stadium, a nationwide arena down in Columbus. So, insurance has done a very good job of disorienting us. Here's a product. This is a great example I always tell people. Here's a product we're all mandated to buy. We're, by law, we have to have insurance, but nobody tells you how to use it. Nobody knows how to use their health insurance. Nobody knows how to use their auto insurance. And they send you that booklet that's on rice paper that looks like it's, the Dead Sea Scrolls. You don't know what it is. And if you read it and understand it, God bless you, because I've been a lawyer for 20 years and can't understand it. But this fan came with a 12-page instruction booklet on not that I shouldn't jump in the tub with this fan. So that tells but your insurance that nobody mandates, that everybody tells you have to buy, they don't tell you how to do it. So shockingly, when you give that statement to the insurance company, they're not necessarily interested in helping you or helping your vehicle get repaired. They're interested in protecting their interests, not your interests. Okay?
Right. So, who's the guy? It's a claims adjuster? The guy that comes out, the guy or gal that comes out to check the vehicle and do pictures and stuff?
Yes. Yes. So that'll be, and then there's two slices. And this is something that we should all understand because we don't know this, and the average person wouldn't. There's a property damage adjuster that deals with the car, and then there's the bodily injury adjuster that deals with you. Okay. So the property damage, and people, I get it. People don't have a fleet of cars at their house that they can jump in and drive when the other one's broken. Okay. They got one car. They got to take their kids to school. They got to go to practice. They got to go to work, etc. Down the line. So they want to get a rental ASAP. That's a huge issue. A lot of people are more concerned about their car than they are the fact their arm is hanging off. So there's two slices, okay? There's the damage done to the vehicle and that. So there'll be a property damage adjuster, which either determine your car can be repaired or it needs to be totaled, and we could talk about that in a little more detail. And then there's the bodily injury adjuster, which deals with you and the injuries you sustain. So this is a little bit different. The damage done to the car is what it is. It's fixed. But the damage done to you, that includes your lost wages, your medical bills, your pain and suffering. It's a lot more gray. And that's where an attorney really can assist you. Unfortunately, if it's a property damage only case, it's kind of fixed into a certain box because it is what it is. They're either going to repair your vehicle or pay you what the cash value of your vehicle is.
So, I remember I told you before we had the call that I had an accident, and it was significant in terms of damage to my vehicle, to the point where they kept upping the amount of the estimate.
Right.
It started out at $5,000, and it was, we found this.
Sure.
6,000. Oh, it's 7,000. How do you go about, what's your recommendation on when is it that you do say, okay, this claim makes sense, let's go with it?
Well, okay, and this is exactly what we were talking about. We look at a couple of different things. We look at, number one, are there injuries? For us to take the case, there has to, the person has to have injuries. Okay, are you injured? And if you're not injured, God bless you. You got lucky. So, but we can assist you. So you have to be injured. And number two is there has to be an insurance policy. Your insurance policy or their insurance policy. Now people say, well, why can't I just go sue Hank? He ran into me and he doesn't have any insurance and he's obviously a high roller. Look at that lamp. This guy, I'm going after him. Well, here's the deal. If Hank doesn't have insurance, chances are Hank isn't sitting on a pile of cash that he's waiting to hand out on a liability judgment. Okay, so you got to see if does a person have coverage. And number three is there liability? What's the liability? because in Ohio, and here's a slice that we don't know, or here's a thing that not the average person doesn't know, is in Ohio, it's not it's not 100 or nothing. You can be partially responsible for an accident and still recover. Okay. For instance, there's a stop sign. You have a stop sign, and the other party's coming down the road. Well, you think you have plenty of space, and you pull out, but it turns out they're speeding, and they hit you. Well, you're both negligent for the accident. Then in Ohio, we apportion who is percentage-wise responsible for the accident. I could go way down that road, but
Wow.
I doubt it. That's not going to be anything
Wow.
anybody's
Wow.
interested in.
Percentage of responsibility.
Oh yeah. That's yeah. You get lost in the weeds there.
That's a term.
But
That's a term I've never heard.
yeah, comparative negligence. Yeah, so that's the exciting part of the law. So yeah, it's not 100% or nothing. You can you can be a percentage responsible and still recover in Ohio. So that's something. That's why you should always talk to an attorney, because here, to bring it all home, Hank, to tell you. This is what I do for a living. These are, this is what the pleasure reading I engage in. This is what my staff does, is handle these kinds of cases. And just like we were talking about, and this may be shocking to us as we all learn this, but corporations don't necessarily have our best interest at heart. I know this might be shocking to some of the listeners out there, but you got to remember, these are for-profit corporations, and they're not interested in Hank getting a full and fair settlement for his injuries. They're interested in paying Hank, what we called go away money. Here, Hank, and if somebody, quite frankly, shows up on your doorstep with $1,000, I'm not going to throw them off, but it's hard when you sign that. You aren't getting that money for free. And when you sign that release, that's it. You've given up your rights to pursue that claim. So, I say that to our clients all the time. There is no free money. Everybody has figured out how to close that loop.
And there is an incredible amount of confusion that happens in that week after the accident. And let me say why. It's like all you guys in your whole industry know that the accident happened at 2:58 p.m. because of the police report, and the next day I've got 32 pieces of mail in the mailbox.
Absolutely.
It's not just lawyers. It's all these claims companies and blah blah. And you just look at it and you're like,
so who can you believe? Yeah.
Yes.
Who do I believe? Who's making a dime on this? Because nobody's sending me. Oh, and you look at the postage on some of these things, and it's outrageous. You're like, this whole thing must cost me $10. So who can I believe? Yeah, exactly. Who's bullshitting me, and who's telling me? And it always reminds me, I had a friend who had an exchange student live next door to him and came to his house one day with that letter that said, you have won $1 million. He goes, this true or is this bullshit? That's what we have to deal with, because here's the deal. We all think that insurance companies have our best interest. Look at the marketing. The good hands people, we're here for you. Your house burns down, we'll be there. So they've done a great job of marketing that they're the straight shooters. They're going to tell you, well, you're paying them to be their friend. Okay. If you stop paying them, they're not going to be there for you. Okay. It's a contractual relationship there. Let's be very honest. So why are, what's the advantage of hiring a personal injury attorney? What's the advantage to you? Okay. And what benefit do I bring to the table? Because the way I get paid is, and people don't understand this, people think this, and this is the logo of our firm, or the, real help for real people, because people don't get it. They don't understand. They believe what they've been told by the insurance companies, and they believe attorneys are ambulance chasers, and why would that guy's going to take money out of my pocket? Well, here, and I have this, I've always kept it. It's a study actually done by insurance companies, the Insurance Research Council, that shows that people get 2.5 times to 3 times more with an attorney than they do without. And I paid hard dollars to get an actual written copy of this, so it wouldn't die and go away on the internet, because I show it to my clients. Because this is all I do for a living, is handle these kinds of cases. And the analogy I always give my clients is this, going to law school, sometimes you I don't know if your listeners would know this, but lawyers sometimes have an ego problem and they think they know what things they don't know. And I thought, I'm a pretty smart guy. This dishwasher is no match for my expertise. I murdered that dishwasher. I killed it. I took parts off that thing I didn't even know existed because I had YouTube and a set of wrenches. You know, really, craftsman set. And I ended up destroying that dishwasher. And when I called the dishwasher repairman eventually, he told me, he's like, number one, he diagnosed the original problem over the phone. Then number two, he told me what it was going to cost to fix what I did on my own. Okay. And so I was like, so do you have any new dishwashers? And this is how we got a new dishwasher at the house. So, but that's exactly it. Sometimes people call me and they've DIY'd it, and God knows in Akron, we love to DIY things. And you should see my grandparents' house if you ever want to see a DIY project. But this is a situation where if you hire an attorney, I don't get paid unless you get paid. Okay. So if I don't recover anything, you don't pay me anything. And the only other time you get a free attorney is when you get arrested and you have no money. So it's a nice thing. It's not the bad thing. It's not if you can't afford an attorney, you will get one. It's you can actually hire us and we work on a percentage. And what that means is I don't get paid until the end of the case. So to answer your question, I don't like to take on claims that I don't think have merit. So I look at those three things. Is there coverage? Are there injuries? What's the liability? And if I take on a claim, I have a pretty good feeling we're going to recover. Are we 100% successful? No. Only Jerry Spence in his fringe jacket is 100% successful. No one is that good. And if you are, please let me know. But we're pretty good at picking the ones that are going to be successful. And then we build value to the case. So, and the ultimate thing that I have are those things that I have to pay the student loan people for every month is the ability to go to court. Okay. And make them spend money. And that's the ultimate lever I have the ability to take them to court. Unfortunately, Hank, you don't, or you can, but it's going to be like the Brady Bunch.
I did it one time. I challenged the ticket one time.
Yeah. How'd that work out? How'd it go?
I went in and I started drawing on the whiteboard and all that. And the attorney walks in and she took it from like a lower level she took it from like a traffic thing to like a high level misdemeanor. And I said, what are you doing? What are you doing? I'm like, this is what I did. This is what happened. And she laid out all these additional charges. And then I had to go get a lawyer.
See, it was the dishwasher. It was the dishwasher all over again. If you just would have called the lawyer would have been like, look.
It was the dishwasher.
Bro. It was the dishwasher. And that's what I always tell my clients is this. It doesn't, but think about it like this. If the dishwasher repairman would come to your house and if he can't fix it, he doesn't pay you, you don't have to pay him. I'd be the best dishwasher repairman ever with that. Now if I fix it, you pay me. So that's the advantage of having an attorney. So we're going to increase the level of the value of the case. We're going to make sure you get a full and fair settlement, and we're going to make sure that you understand what you're signing, what you're paying. We're going to make sure your medical bills are paid off, etc. And I can give you, I'll give you my little science experiment from last year. I was involved in an auto accident last year, and I didn't tell anybody I was a personal injury attorney. I wanted to see what my clients saw. I wanted to experience what they experienced, and I was shocked at the amount of lies, just not necessarily lies, but not the truth that they didn't tell me. And then, the great reveal, it was like a reality show. And I told him, now look me up online and you can see I'm an attorney. So I got a good chuckle and I got a good resolution out of it. But, it's certainly, I saw what my clients would go through without an attorney. And it was disappointing because here's the reality. I don't get to talk to the adjusters that my clients get to talk to when they're not represented by an attorney because I get to only talk to attorney rep adjusters that don't say crazy things.
Yeah.
But you would be amazed at the crazy things I hear and from my clients and what their adjusters say. So unfortunately, you got to remember, if it's the other party's insurance company, they are certainly not interested in paying you. Okay. And then here's another thing. That I hear is if it happens to be somebody else's insurance company or your own insurance company, that people are very concerned about that. What do people say when you're involved in an accident, the other person doesn't have coverage? What do you say, Hank, if you've got full coverage? What do you tell me?
I'd say that I'm worried that my insurance is going to raise my rates and it's going to cause me an issue.
Why is that? I mean, this is a product you've paid for. Why are they penalizing you?
Because it's being used.
So if I sell you this flashlight here, and it's got a laser on it, okay? See, it's got, and you use it up or lose it, then I want you to buy another one, right? What a great product, what a great product insurance is. Here's a product, if you use it, you're going to be penalized. Here, if you wear out this flashlight, it's going to cost you $10. You're like, I don't want to buy the flashlight then. That's a lie. Under the Ohio Administrative Code, your rates cannot be raised. Okay, so that's a myth. I don't want to say it's a lie, but it's a myth. And there are and nobody's telling you the truth. I mean, you're not going to sit down with the OAC and go, honey, I was just reading this, and did you know this fun fact? No, that's a contract between you and the insurance company. So you and Nationwide, or you and State Farm, so you as their insured can make a claim, and there's no penalty to you. That's what you're paying for. It's like having a chainsaw in your shed, but you don't know how to use it. Okay? And that's exactly it. So I'm the helpful neighbor who comes along and says, hey, I'm going to show you how to use this chainsaw so you don't cut off your legs.
And that's a perfect ending. Hey, I really want to say thank you. I mean, this has been extremely thorough, and we're going to put this up. I'll have it up in the afternoon hours.
Great.
I'd really recommend, I think this would be great for like newer or younger drivers to watch. And especially anybody, those early drivers that only have 5-10 years experience that maybe haven't been in an accident yet. I think it'd be really beneficial. And
as the father of 3 younger drivers, I can attest. I can tell you all the insurance stories. Right. And we'll talk about dog owners next. I also have an insurance claim going with one of our dogs too, so we can talk about that next time.
All right, man. I appreciate you. I appreciate Amourgis. We'll keep those travel reports going. And that's it, folks. So all right. Thanks to Francis for joining, and we'll see everybody. Take care, folks. Have a good night, everybody. And everybody out there, say good night, Shirley.
Good night, Shirley.